Billionaire founder of Foxconn, Terry Gou, has quit the Chinese Kuomintang Party. His departure comes after being defeated in party primaries and asked publicly to support party unity. But Gou accuses the KMT of being an out-of-date party with committee members who put their own interest first. So what is Gou's intention now? How will it affect the Taiwan leadership election in 2020? And what consequences could this have for cross-Strait relations? To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined in the studio by Mr. Zhong Houtao, Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. We will also speak via satellite to Professor Shen Dingli from Fudan University in Shanghai and Ms. Joanna Lei, Managing Director of Azul Management Limited in Taipei. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Pan Deng. So, Mr. Zhong, Gou Taiming left the KMT with some bitter remarks. He says the KMT is an out-of-date party with committee members who put their own interests first. Now, you've been studying the Taiwan issue, I would say, in your whole career. Is it really?
I think this is really an ironic saying, since it is not the KMT members who are putting their interest first. It is Terry Gou himself putting his interest first. Just 4 months ago, Terry Gou resumed his membership. The main purpose, or the only purpose, is just want to run in the KMT primary election. And after he was defeated, then he decided to quit from KMT. So you could find that no matter whatever Terry Gou would do, the only purpose is just to put his own interest first. So from this, you could find that Terry Gou's credit is bankrupt. In the KMT's primary election, Terry Gou once promised that if he failed, he would do whatever to support the KMT candidate. Finally, he indeed failed, but now he betrayed his promise, and he would try to run for himself. So from this, you could find that his credit is bankrupt. As for future, I think the Terry Gou would be doomed to fail. Since in the last 20 years Taiwan election history, no one, for either KMT or the DPP, those who could quit from the party would win in the election. So it is almost impossible for Terry Gou to win in the next election.
I sense the kind of urgency in your words. So are you implying that with this Terry Gou drama or whirlwind, the KMT is at a quite dangerous place right now?
Yes, exactly. Not only dangerous for the KMT, but also dangerous for himself. As for the KMT, I think he would split the KMT and even for the whole blue camp, since he would attract some blue camp voters. This would be a great disaster for the KMT, especially for the KMT victory. As for the Terry Gou, I think he will be doomed to fail. In the past 20 years in the Taiwan elections history, no one could win, for those who just quit from the party, for either KMT or for either DPP, no one could win. So as for the Terry Gou, I think even he decided to run for the next general election, he would be doomed to fail. So that would also be a disaster for himself.
Right. This reminds us the Song Chu-yu drama
more
than a decade ago.
Yes.
And this time you think it's even worse?
Yeah, it would be much worse than Song Chu-yu. In about 20 years ago, at that time, Song Chu-yu even get more than 30% of voters. But now, I think for Terry Gou, it would be almost impossible to get even 20% of the Taiwan people's votes.
Right. Now, for more insight from Taiwan, let's cross live to Ms. Joanna Lei in Taipei. Now, Joanna, you're now working in the private sector, but I do know that you have abundant experience in Taiwan politics, served as a former legislator for the KMT. So tell us, do you think the KMT is an out-of-date party?
Well, certainly the way that Han Kuo-yu has garnered huge support reflected that there are a lot of people who wish to have a new breath of fresh air into the KMT. But I think for Terry Gou to say that, it's an extremely ironical way, because his candidacy was actually proposed and approved by this outdated Central Standing Committee. The Central Standing Committee has green-lighted his candidacy for the primary and has given him an extremely high honor as the only honorary member outside of Sun Yunxuan. So this party has bent over backwards to accommodate his last-minute candidacy, and for him to have lost and accused the party this way, I think is extremely ironical.
So you're saying that the KMT offered Terry Gou a level playing field within the party, but he was defeated. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's more than fair, because he actually would not have the proper position to even run in the party primary. The Central Standing Committee bent over backwards to accommodate him. And in addition to that, I think the current situation for KMT is better than a day or 2 days ago. Before, you could have a danger, and that's feared and dreaded by most of the supporters, that they would change the candidates in the last minute, much like Hong Xiuzhu's situation. And we all know that caused a huge defeat, and KMT almost never got any opportunity to come back. So most of the supporters would dread that as the most fearful position for KMT to be in. Now that Terry Gou has relinquished and has formally left the party, there is not likely to have any chance for him to replace Han Kuo-yu to be the party party candidate, and therefore the most dreaded possibility is now diffused.
So. Also referring you to Gou's remarks, he said some committee members are putting their own interests first. Who are these members Terry Gou is talking about?
Well, he must be talking about people who did not support him. However, in the first place, his candidacy was sort of last minute and was sort of behind the closed door, orchestrated by certain committee members. So those certain committee members at the last minute, a few days ago, put their names on a newspaper ad calling Terry to come back to a unity stand. So I don't think anybody owes Terry Gou an apology. And he has to realize that his candidacy to start with is highly unusual, and his defeat is landslide. So once he decided to join that party primary, he has to abide by the law and by the rule, and he has to accept the consequences. And that simply is how partisan democracy functions.
Well, so far, you and Mr. Zhong in our Beijing studio both painted a gloomy picture for Gou's political future. But what do you make of this latest update, if you will? He personally handed Mid-Autumn Festival treat mooncakes to Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je and also the former Legislative Speaker Wang Jinping. What is in his plan?
Well, certainly that was the Chapter 3 of Gou's candidacy. Chapter 1, he went as a wildcard player into the party primary. Chapter 2, he lost the primary, continued to play in a very ambiguous way. And Chapter 3 is to imply that he would coordinate and work in concert with Ko Wen-je and Wang Jinping. But let's put the basic on the table. Ko Wen-je is green, and Pan Green has a long relationship with him. Gou claims to be blue, and Pan Blue has supported his candidacy initially. So once the Pan Green and Pan Blue decided to work together, then their supporters will be called back by their individual party. The Ko Wen-je supporters, some will be called back by Tsai Ing-wen, and Gou's supporter will be called back by Han Kuo-yu. So this kind of shotgun marriage may not yield the best result. 1 + 1 will be smaller than 2.
But Ms. Lei, earlier some analysts are saying that Gou's decision could benefit Tsai Ing-wen's re-election a bit. But from what you've just said, it's not exactly the case, right?
Well, he definitely will benefit from Tsai Ing-wen because the ones supporting Guo, including his campaign staff, his inner circles, consists of primarily KMT party cadres, ex-politicians, mostly on the blue pan camp. Therefore, whatever Guo does will actually hurt Han Kuo-yu a lot more than he would hurt Tsai Ing-wen. And that is why we sort of believe that Tsai Ing-wen is quite happy at this moment, counting whatever political advantages she might get.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Lei. So, Mr. Zhong, what do you make of this? Do you think Tsai Ing-wen is quite happy right now?
As for now, I think Tsai Ing-wen indeed is very happy since just as Joanna said, Terry Gou would split the blue camp and would attract some of the blue camp voters, and that would be a great disaster for the KMT and for the KMT candidate Han Kuo-yu. Still, there are some changes in future if the Terry Gou, if the Terry Gou could persist to the last minute, I think that would be a disaster, just as I said. However, if Terry Gou decided to suspend or decided to stop in the last minute, and he announced that I would stop and I would turn to support Han Kuo-yu for the whole blue camp, and I think that would be a great chance for the KMT to return its power. So that would become a disaster for Tsai Ing-wen. So I think, as for now, indeed Tsai Ing-wen would be very happy, but to the last minute there is still some changes.
Right, and we'll be talking about this right after a short break. You're watching Dialogue on CGTN. Stay with us. So, Mr. Zhong, we've talked a lot about uncertainties in Taiwan politics at this moment, but one thing is for sure that cross-strait ties will be a major item on any candidate's agenda. So let's talk about Tsai Ing-wen's move. The legislature in Taiwan is currently working on what is called a Chinese Communist Party Agents Bill, while the public calls it the new martial law. Do you think the DPP is trying to create a kind of a red scare on the island to help its campaign?
Yes, of course, but this so-called CCP agents bill, the Tsai Ing-wen just want to build a kind of green terror in Taiwan, just like the white terror in Jiang Jie's time. The main purpose for Tsai Ing-wen is just want to cut ties of the cross-strait relations for anyone. If he want to set a good relationship with the Chinese mainland, then he would be labeled as a kind of the so-called spy. Then maybe he would be sent to.
It also sounds like she's trying to intimidate anyone who would potentially talk about the unification of the country.
Exactly. Not only talk about reunification, even for anyone who would talk about peaceful development or to contact with the Chinese mainland, then he would have a chance or would be labeled as a spy for Taiwan, and then he would be sent to the jail.
And in reaction to that, Ma Xiaoguang, the spokesperson for the Taiwan Affairs Office of the State Council, warned that the Taiwan Authority is playing with a fire. Do you think moves like this will eventually cross the red line?
Yes, exactly. Just as Ma Xiaoguang said, the Tsai Ing-wen Authority is playing with the fire, and I think that and last he would set the fire on herself. Since more than 2 million Taiwanese people are working, are studying, are living in Chinese mainland, and those people and their families, I think more than 10 million Taiwanese people would oppose, would fight against the so-called CCP agents. Otherwise, those 2 million Taiwanese people would be labeled as a spy or something like that. So I think this bill had very low and even no chance to be passed in the Taiwan Legislative Yuan. So that I think would just a kind of a tool for Tsai Ing-wen Authority to help his voting for his next coming election. Just want to build a kind of atmosphere to irritate the cross-strait relations and to attract the green camp voters to support herself. So I think the main this bill would be doomed to fail. But the danger or the potential danger we should not neglect.
And now let me follow up on your earlier notion. You said eventually Taiwan will set fire to herself. Now
yes.
This fire you're talking about, I think it's not only regarding to Taiwan politics. Maybe it's also about a larger picture. Is that right?
Yes, it's also highly related to a large picture. If the Taiwan authority continue to push, do whatever she or Taiwan authority could do to let this bill be passed, I think the cross-strait relationship would be highly intensified, and the Chinese mainland will do whatever we could do to defend our nation's sovereignty and to defend our sovereignty, and to do whatever could do to set alarm for Taiwan authority. For example, we would send some warship or jet fighters to fly around Taiwan, and we could have full or enough tools to send a strong message for Taiwan authority.
And let's go back to the basics. The DPP is a party who put Taiwan independence in its own platform.
Yes.
And now it's the ruling party in Taiwan. So looking back at the recent years, Taiwan and Taiwan ruled, how far did this independence agenda have gone?
And so this question, it would be divided in two parts. The first is that although the DPP still stick to the so-called, just as you said, Taiwan Independence Charter, but for even Taiwan or the whole DPP, no one as for now could say we publicly we could say we continue to stick the Taiwan Independence Charter. So in Chinese, just in Chinese saying, the Taiwan independence is just like a mouse or something like a snake running on the road, 过街老鼠人人喊打, just something like that. So no one in DPP or for Taiwan could publicly say we continue to support the Taiwan Independence Charter. On the other hand, we could not neglect the Taiwan some potential or some underground move to push the Taiwan independence, this great project. For example, in education, in social area, in economic, and in some other areas, she could do whatever she could do to cut cross-strait ties, to prepare the final.
And she has been doing that, right?
Yeah, exactly. She has been doing that for the final, the so-called Taiwan independence project.
Right. Another factor we cannot neglect is from the United States. And for more on that, let's cross live to Professor Shen Dingli in Shanghai. Well, Professor, let's start with this recent visit by Scott Busby, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the United States. He visited Taiwan recently and said Beijing is exploiting social media to disseminate false information in a bid to intervene in Taiwan's leadership election. What do you make of that kind of remarks?
Well, the U.S. actually is pressurizing the Taiwanese authority in producing some legislation like CPP agent law to warn Taiwan that for your upcoming election, Beijing authority may be interested in intervening, and that give some pressure for Taiwan to do, and Taiwan will respond with such kind of revision of its law. So U.S. is working with Taiwan in order to make sure DPP would be re-elected. So their pro-independence figure would be in the Taiwan politics in leading Taiwan for another 4 years. So we can clearly see the U.S. is stepping up its intervention into Taiwan's affairs in order to distract the process of Taiwan mainland cross-strait engagement.
So if you're saying that the Trump administration is stepping up its interference in the Taiwan affairs, then what will be the repercussions?
Well, I think Kuomintang side would be apprehensive. They do want to have Taiwan security, but they are worried that Taiwan may push Taiwan into some dangerous situation. So they are worried. And Han Kuo-yu is standing up, saying he is going to make Taiwan secure, but through working with mainland in a cooperative way. And U.S. wants to distract this. And for the mainland side, we want to make sure that those elements supporting independence would not get support from Taiwan's mainstream. And we are also apprehensive of the U.S. Supporting those Taiwan independence movement. Therefore, we are stepping up our political pressure, economic pressure, and also military preparedness.
So having said that, Professor, do you think the Trump administration has a sufficient understanding of the sensitivity of the Taiwan issue? Because according to Susan Thornton, a former senior U.S. diplomat, President Donald Trump obviously quite lack the sufficient understanding on this issue.
Well, obviously, President Trump has no preparedness in moving toward a presidency in the White House. He has not done any official position previously. So he has zero knowledge about this. And for a couple of his senior colleagues in the White House, they used to be trained as a businessman. And they are very skilled in conducting business for private company. But many of them have not had a sufficient public service preparation. But he does have some experienced people, like his former national security advisor, John Bolton, but who has a very weird perspective of the world, wants to bully all the country, not to work with all country, want to press all country. That is not the way. So U.S. can get cooperation from other country. And finally, Trump has fired him. Trump has fired 3 national security advisors because each of them turned to be not to be suitable for his agenda. He wants to be #1 in the world, make America great again. But he does not know how to do and what kind of people to use. So given this, with the ill preparation about the sensitivity of cross-Taiwan Strait relationship, he still at this time is not ready in understanding the complexity and the sophistication of such a very sensitive relationship. That has made China-U.S. relationship also a lot more unstable.
Thank you very much, Professor Shen Dingli in Shanghai. Now, Mr. Zhong, talking about this, let me refer you to a recent report on the South China Morning Post newspaper. It's reported that Taiwan will buy $3.6 billion worth of U.S. agricultural products. Now, if we connect this to the earlier U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, do you think Taiwan is buying his political future?
Yes, just as you said, Taiwan is buying her own political future, not for the security of Taiwan. Actually, by this kind of arms sales, Taiwan just want to show her personal goodwill to United States and want to get support from United States. If the United States support Taiwan, and I think Taiwan would have a good chance to win in the next election. So you could find that Taiwan is using using Taiwan people's money just to buy her personal political future. As for Taiwan security, I think that would endanger Taiwan's security. The more the Taiwan the more the Taiwan gets, the arms from United States, the more danger for it will be for Taiwan, since this will provoke the cross-strait relationship and will intensify the cross-strait relationship and would make Chinese mainland become much more warned on what Taiwan would do in future. So in this, we could say that by buying United States arms, this Taiwan is just for her own interest first.
And China has made it very clear that peaceful reunification, of course, is the best case scenario,
yes,
but it will not rule out the possibility of a military scenario. If the situation goes on like this, what do you make of the possibility between the two?
If the United States, if the Taiwan authority continue to provoke cross-strait relationship to irritate Chinese mainland, I think the Chinese mainland will do whatever we could do to defend our sovereignty. We never ruled out the use of force, just as you mentioned. So in future, if the Taiwan continue to run in the wrong way, I think the Chinese mainland will be compelled to take some measures. And this I think will speed up our reunification. On the other side, if the United States continue to neglect our China's core national interest and continue to play the so-called Taiwan cards, I think the Chinese mainland will also to take some measures to counter in the United States these kind of games. So I think the Chinese mainland has already prepared very well, and if anyone the foreign forces continue to irritate or play Taiwan cards, I think the Chinese mainland will be compelled to take measures.
And Mr. Zhong, we've talked a lot about serious stuff, hard stuff. Yes. But let's remember, Friday marks the traditional Chinese festival, Mid-Autumn Festival, and coincidentally, it's the occasion for family reunions, friends reunions. So at this occasion, of course, our best wishes goes out to all the compatriots on Chinese mainland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and overseas. But putting that into context, how would the Taiwan issue get some peaceful solution through this traditional and cultural link?
That's really a good question. Just as you said, the two sides share the same blood, same culture, same festival. Just as you said, today we are celebrating the Mid-Autumn Day, not only in Chinese mainland but also in Taiwan. So that is a great link between the two sides. And in future, I think we should strengthen this kind of link. We should strengthen or enhance our cultural cooperation. And in this way, we could find that we are one family. We belong to one family. So we should work together to improve the cross-strait relationship and to speed up the reunification and the Chinese nation's rejuvenation. So you could find that the reunification is highly closely related to rejuvenation. By reunification, we could speed up rejuvenation, and if there is no reunification, then there would be no rejuvenation. So I think, anyway, in one word, the two sides, the people should work together, since we have the same blood, same culture, to work for the rejuvenation of a Chinese nation. We should enjoy this kind of great honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhong from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. And that's it for this edition of Dialogue on CGTN. I'm Pan Deng in Beijing. Bye-bye.